Hello and welcome to our podcast, Real Out Loud. Join us and together we'll be engaging in conversations about the truths not spoken of, reflections about life and other issues, and experiences that reel or bring women off balance. I'm your host and my name is Nicole, and joining me will be my co-host, Pinky. And on our platform, we'll have guests from different facets of life, some who have also had it real with life, and some professionals to give us information on these reflections as we figure out how to survive the real.
Greetings and hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast. The name is Pinky, but I never ever walk alone. I am with my co-host Nicole. Hi Nick.
Hi Pinky, how are you?
I am awesome. I'm awesome. So listen, today we're going to be talking about something as always, but I want to take this time and opportunity to actually welcome our first time listeners and say welcome to the family, to the home of reeling issues.
Definitely.
And to our returning or our members, we say thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for staying with us. And today we are talking about abortion.
Quite a difficult topic to talk about, but yet most suffer in silence. We are here to end the stigma so that we can, spread the awareness and the stigma so that, people don't feel judged, but they are able to, tell their story and be able to rewrite it in healthier ways.
Yeah. And did you actually know that for more than a decade now in South Africa, laws have been established in an attempt to protect the lives and health of women seeking abortions? But despite numerous drives or awareness campaigns to educate the protection of women's interests, it's still alarming how many people suffer due to unsafe abortions.
And it's actually unsettling to discover that numerous abortions are actually okay under, forced and pressured circumstances.
And some happen willfully. But despite the presence of this such challenges, would you say there's hope for a shift towards a better situation in the near future?
Most definitely.
And I think it starts with a mindset. If we approach the mindset, but then community and relatives and family, and given that it's a forced or pressured situation or circumstance, I feel we still have a long way to go. I feel that we have a long way to go.
Maybe the starting point would be us actually getting to a point where we discuss the things that actually get people to understand that, abortion doesn't mean that if I tell you I did an abortion or I had an abortion, it definitely means that, it was just out of choice. There are circumstances where, people are, like we were talking about, to say sometimes these things, they are forced on a person. You might find that maybe a person has been raped. What option are they left with to care for that child? What happens in the end?
Yeah.
So you see, if we address those challenges, then it means definitely, I think there is a possibility of a better future guaranteed under such circumstances, because we put people to the light of what is really happening behind the scenes.
All right. Yeah, that's true. And going back to a point that you have just raised of the circumstances, I think we can look into what are the circumstances that lead to abortion. I understand that abortion is not something that a sensible person would seek out if it were unnecessary. And people now, even when performed in accordance with today's best practices, either medical or surgical, it still poses some undesirable outcomes,
Definitely.
So let's talk about other reasons why people may seek to abort a pregnancy.
Like I spoke of earlier, I talked about the rape scenario, to say that a person has been sexually assaulted and they are left with no option. They can fall pregnant and they are left with no option, because remember, there's also stigma that is also related to rape, but we're not going to talk about it
Yes.
in this episode, but that's a topic for another day. But like we say, there's a lot of stigma out there. Someone can get assaulted and they'll be shy to tell the world or to tell those around them that this is what is happening, or maybe because they don't feel like they're going to be believed. So they end up maybe keeping quiet about the whole experience until it then comes up to be a pregnancy that came unexpected as a result. And sometimes as well, there are scenarios such as medical complications or anomalies that arise for a number of reasons that endanger a woman's life, or that of either the mother or the fetus itself.
Or the baby.
So you see, sometimes it then comes to a point where they are left with no choice, but the best medical option at that stage is to terminate. So which means definitely they're not going to be, they're not going to have a choice. Like, for example, situations like an ectopic pregnancy, maybe for someone who's listening that might be thinking, what medical conditions are you talking about? We've got what we call the ectopic pregnancy, the one that, that starts off in the tube, not the uterus itself. So, which means that it's going to pose risk to the mother's life. So, one way or the other, it has to be taken out for whatever reason. Yeah.
True. And we also have minors that are not ready to be parents or to assume the responsibility of parenting. They end up turning to abortion because, they're worrying about the lack of financial means to raise the child or how themselves, because they're still minors. It's a situation of a child raising a child. Then, they might not be ready about it. And it might interrupt with their current way of living, way of life. We might have...
Pinky, now that you're mentioning about minors, a thought just came to my mind. Where you are a minor, the fact that you're a minor, it means that you are incapable of making your own decisions in relation to quite a number of things at the end of the day. So you can imagine parents can go out of their way to get a child's pregnancy terminated simply because, number one, like you're talking of finances, maybe finances are an issue. Yes. Maybe, the fear of people talking, their status, trying to protect or preserve their status. Maybe it's a pastor and that's a pastor's child, or the society they come from, they don't really accept and acknowledge such experiences of a child falling pregnant. Sometimes it's only because they're also trying to protect their own status, like how people see them. If they say people saw me in a certain way, then and now my child gets pregnant, then it becomes an issue. So, which means that it can happen that some of these families can end up forcing the abortion on the child, even if it's not the best decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, and because you're a minor, you still need security of home, education, financial support. You end up aborting because you cannot take care of yourself.
And mothers, sometimes there would be cases that I've had where, a mother forces a child or thinks that the abortion is the best choice for the child because she's scared that it will compromise the nature of a relationship with the father of the child, or maybe the child won't be accepted back in school if it's figured out that the child is pregnant. Because there are some countries, that do not allow children to attend school even if they are pregnant. We are still in an era where we are trying to change the laws as we go. So some of the laws are not as yet protecting people under such, compromising situations.
And given that as well, in some countries, abortions are still illegal. So you see, it poses many risks to those who seek abortion. The information is really not shared. I doubt there's enough research done for the person who, or much information given to the person that is going into abortion, or the risks that it imposes, because now it's a rushed process. I feel like it'll be a rushed process. If I am a minor, I don't have time to decide for myself, or I don't have time to think it through, then it might risk my life, or it might risk my womb and things like that.
Yeah, you are mentioning quite an important aspect when you're saying that it's a rushed decision. Remember, this abortion also happens under certain conditions and circumstances. They say the earlier the better. The later, the more risky it is for whoever has to undergo the procedure. So, like you're saying, it ends up creating a lot of, issues, because now you are thinking, you don't have time to really sit down and process everything, even individually or as a family. But you are just in the position where you just want to rush to make a decision because you want an outcome that is in favor of your needs at that stage and at that time. And then you find that at a later stage, that's when people start to suffer the consequences, either medical consequences, psychological consequences, or
mental,
or emotional consequences.
Of course, I was also thinking that someone might go through it alone, given that they don't want the immediate or people around them to know that they're pregnant. So they decide on their own, then they make the decision, and then they rush into it. Then, like you said, later on we have the circumstances, or we have the situations where someone will be depressed, or someone just doesn't look okay.
Sometimes I don't think these people really have access to information that would help them to make the relevant decisions. I'm just thinking that, most probably these people also who find themselves in such a situation, they are misinformed. Or maybe they don't have access to adequate information that would help them make the decision. Because I was thinking of what we were talking about earlier, to say that you from a developing country, or a certain country, not necessarily developing, but a certain country that does not, the laws and the rules, they do not, they are not in support of abortion. Then it means that sometimes people will end up doing the backdoor one. Which means that when it's a backdoor and you come, Pinky, you want my help, I'm just going to give you a pill, I'm going to do the procedure on you, whatever procedure it is. And then after that, I don't want any contact with you because I don't want to suffer the legal consequences of being responsible for your life.
I don't want it known. I don't want it known that I dealt with you.
And if something happens, something bad happens to you, maybe you bleed out, or you have some serious complication and you die. For me, it's a legal consequence. So when it's a backdoor thing, it means that that trade happens and there is nothing, no kind of like, what do you call it? No sense of...
No due process is followed.
Yeah, no due process, no kind of attachment after that. I think that's why sometimes it ends up, getting in the way of people getting the relevant information that will help them to make the right decisions at the end of the day.
I feel people don't get the relevant information or the information that they need in time, because I don't think it's a planned thing. You don't plan to fall pregnant and say, I'm planning to fall pregnant and have an abortion. It's an instant discovery that I am pregnant, or now I have to terminate it, or now I'm forced to terminate it. So in that turmoil, you just do things randomly, without processing them through randomly. That's the right way, randomly. And then let's look at relationships. People are in relationships and then you get pregnant, and guy is like, no, I don't want that baby. Get rid of it.
Under such circumstances, you are definitely left with no choice, because you know when the complexity of relationships sometimes is that when people are dating, but they are not thinking about the possibilities of such things coming up, like an unwanted pregnancy. And then it then ends up being forced on the girl or the person. Obviously, it's a girl. The person carrying the child. It's then left upon them, to make the decision. They say, if you don't terminate it, then you are going to take care of the child. I don't want my family knowing about this. And then you are the one who's stuck as the woman now. You have to make a decision. Because number one, you already know you don't have support. And we once mentioned finance as an issue that also makes people to make that decision and that choice. Number two, you're thinking of your relationships. The one person that you're hoping to support you and be present is the one who's telling you, go and do this. So you're left with no option. Sometimes people end up making those decisions, not because they just careless, or not because they are just, they are not inhumane. They are inhumane. They don't have morals. But it's because of, they're at a crossroads and they don't know what decision to make.
Oh, yes. And I'm just thinking now as we go, I also wanted to raise a question that in terms of relationship, given that, okay, let's say I find out that I'm pregnant and I am not ready to have a baby, then I do not tell my partner that I'm pregnant, then I go ahead and have an abortion. This happens in marriages, in relationships.
Yeah.
Then a person aborts without the consent of the father. Then the father later finds out that I aborted. Do you think abortion affects the male partners in the relationship as well?
I think it depends on the individual. Like we are saying, the abortion, as much as it affects the one making the decision, it also affects those that are involved, whether knowingly or unknowingly. That's why you find that there's always issues of regret that stem up in the end. Men, I've come to see and realize that men suffer the consequences of an abortion as more or less the same way that a lady also suffers it, the one who had to do it physically. Because now it's an issue for them, it's an issue of the morals, their spirituality. The abortion is not in line with their spirituality or their morals or the way they were raised or the person that they want to be, and then they start to regret that decision over time as they come to understand the depth of what the decision that they had to either make or push this person to make.
Let's take a short break and we will be right back.
We are back still discussing this important topic on abortion. So just to continue from where we left off, though the law and most of society normally seeks to affirm the rights and the needs of the mother, the reality is that a lot of pregnant women are pressured into terminating these pregnancies. It's not always in a direct and an obvious way, which then makes it very difficult for them to resist or fight. Like the example that we spoke about just before we ended the first section of the discussion, where we were saying that maybe you are in a relationship and then the guy is like, you need to terminate. We also need to consider some of the factors that are behind that. Sometimes it's not because the person just denies their pregnancy, but sometimes it could be because maybe they were in a less exclusive, like in a relationship that's not exclusive. It comes to a point where they are just sexually intimate and then they happen to have the child. And then now they are stuck with the decision, do we, take care of this child, even if we don't have, us as the parents don't have the relationship or not?
of course, there's going to be fear of being a single parent because it's more of we are not dating, we did not plan this, and so forth. So single parenting, and then you're not ready to be a single parent, or like you said, that the partner denies paternity, then person tells you, go find the father of that child because it's not mine. Then public shaming by family and community.
Yeah. It's one of the things that would actually bring fear.
There are other abortions that are forced or that happen because of employment.
Oh, yeah.
A fear of losing my job. I am employed, I'm a domestic worker, I get pregnant. Then they're like, if you're pregnant, you cannot work here anymore, or there's no space for you here, or you're in the entertainment industry, you're an actress, or you are a public figure, and then they're like, no, this post does not need someone who's pregnant, or we cannot wait for you to go for maternity leave and come back, and things like that.
I think sometimes it's also because of misinformation. When we look at it, like there are certain laws that are also in place to protect pregnant women in their workplace environment. When we look at the Employees Act as well, it's very important for people to know what their rights and what the expectations are when I'm having a certain condition. Those things, we can access them on the internet, on your government, portal, where you can also familiarize with information of how to protect yourself from the company or the job in that instance. But like you are saying, there are certain jobs like a domestic worker that you don't have much choice because it's not like a structured thing.
Yes, it becomes like a hostile situation. I think it's important if you find out that you're pregnant and you feel like you are forced to abort, you let someone know, because I think if you are in that state, you might not be able to be as proactive as much as someone who's not directly into the situation, so that someone can research and find out more information for you.
Yeah, they can help you.
If I'm a domestic, I'm panicking. If I'm told you lose your job if you do not abort, I'm panicking. I'm thinking of losing my job. How am I going to take care of myself? So if I tell Nicole, and Nicole, I'm pregnant, but I'm being told to abort, Nicole can actually come in and assist and do the research and find out for me, because I'm in a panic mode.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of an episode that I once saw on one of these shows on the internet lately, the one for DNA closure, the one that Tina Shemgabe is doing. I actually realized that there can be instances where, the girl, the domestic worker, is put in a compromising situation, either because they are young or force is used on them. And then they get to be intimate with the employer. And then the employer starts to decide, like the male employer started deciding what is it that was supposed to happen to a pregnancy, only to find that they pinned the pregnancy on someone else, like her boyfriend, but yet the employer knew that this is my pregnancy. So I think there are cases where, let's say a woman can find out that this housemaid has had a child for my husband. Some women out there, they really force the domestic worker to terminate that pregnancy. Like you were talking about the public shaming, they're trying to protect their image on the outside, but they don't know they're not thinking about the life that they are putting through a lot by having to take them through such a procedure.
And risking, true.
And sometimes partners, parents, or family members in general, sometimes they threaten to withdraw that financial support. They can either threaten to leave the relationship because they are unready or unwilling to raise the child.
Or sometimes they start the shaming. Some people, let's say I am not easily or mostly affected by what people say out there. But if my immediate family or my close family start the shaming, it will definitely get to me, which might force me to to do the abortion because I seek family approval or I don't want to be in the streets, because you're told if you do not abort, then you find somewhere else to stay because we're not going to stay with, an extra mouth to feed.
While the experience itself directly impacts the mother, we can't deny that people that are actually living and working with her, they can also be affected.
True, like parents, or the siblings. Oh, yeah. Or partners, even the partners and the rest of the families, they end up experience the emotional turmoil as well. Because if we love a person and they go through something this difficult, it hurts us too.
In certain circumstances, a person goes through this procedure alone. They don't confide in anyone. So you can imagine the amount of emotional consequences that come, or psychological consequences that come as a result of having to deal with everything in silence, because you don't want that shaming and you want to take responsibility for whatever that is happening to you.
Oh, yeah. So that's when people go through grief. There's depression and emotional turmoil, feeling a whole lot of things at the same time. But, there are those who actually experience a form of relief after having an abortion. I think it will take us back to that point where you raised earlier that maybe it's a rape situation.
Because it's going to be like a trigger for you to see that child. And remember, to be a parent, you have to be not only physically and financially ready, you also have to be emotionally ready. It takes a lot from you to connect with the child, to be there for the child, and to provide for the child. So I think it comes in the sense of relief, in the sense that now it's not going to be a constant reminder of the experience that this person has had to deal with all of their life, because that can bring a complexity in the nature of relationship that they're going to have with the child. And I also happen to notice that sometimes it doesn't only affect our psychological well-being. There are fertility issues that come. Some people start to have regret. Yeah. They start to have regret at a later stage, because maybe they are thinking, this is why I'm not giving birth, because I had an abortion before. Or they start to actually face complications physically because whatever procedures were done at that stage, if it was a backstreet one, it wasn't surgically approved to be okay enough for their body to withstand,
Or cleansing of the womb and things like that.
Having the necessary procedures done. So, those are some of the outcomes. And I just have a quick question, Pinky. I've seen that most people in relationships, after, let's say this experience has happened to someone, and then at a later stage, they get in a relationship and involve themselves with someone. Do you think it's necessary for people to speak about their experience of the abortion or not? Because I've seen people who walk away from a woman because she was not open enough to talk about the abortion that she had at an earlier stage of her life. So do you think it's important for people to speak about this with their recent partners or not?
I would think it would depend with how serious the relationship is. At the beginning, I wouldn't, but if we get serious, or we are at a stage where we feel like we are going to spend the rest of our lives together, then I might want to be open about it, that this is what happened. If there was a circumstance to it, then I give the reason or what transpired for me to actually take that route. But it's a personal preference. If you want to share, you share. If you don't go, because there are those who are open. Like, I can actually go and air right now and say I had an abortion. This. It's out there. And there are those who are close that don't want to be sharing or opening up as much as that. So it depends with you yourself personally,
as an individual,
if you want it known, or if you don't want it known, because at the end of the day, your body, your right.
And, like the judgment is not far off. Like we said, society can be judgmental of a person. Even the new partner can start to have a different way of seeing an individual. So like you're saying, it's very important for a person to decide what is specifically right or correct for them. I'm just thinking in an instance where, the procedure was done back door and then you have these fertility issues. It can be it can be a really complex situation for you to own up to the responsibility, because that can be used against you throughout the relationship. Or it can end the relationship. Sometimes it can help to actually save the relationship by taking the necessary steps to ensure that, the problem is fixed or corrected. So I think this is a question that we can leave to the floor to decide or to discuss. If anyone wants to say something, if they've got an input, if they've got an opinion that they feel this might help someone.
It is very important to gather and have all the necessary and right information if you want to take the abortion route, to approach a medical practitioner who will be able to assist you and help you in this regard. And because these outcomes are not an easy to manage in isolation, it is also very important to provide and accept support. Before, during, and after the procedure, social labels and stigmas only serve to separate the people who need help from the help that they need. Let us be accepting people. Let us be loving people. Be kind to one another, because you never know what the next person is going through.
For more on our episodes on these relatable conversations, please check us on our website, www.realoutloud.co.za, or other podcast platforms. Our episodes are also accessible on social media platforms indicated on our website and our YouTube page. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and invite others to our web page. Ciao!